The USS Artemis drifted silently through the void, its massive engines humming with power as it pushed deeper into unexplored space. Commander Daniel Ross stood on the bridge, his steady gaze fixed on the main view screen. 42 years old, with graying temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of hard decisions, Ross had captained the Artemis for 7 years. This deep space mission was supposed to be routine: chart the Epsilon sector, look for habitable worlds, and return to Earth. "Commander, we're picking up something unusual," said Amy Reeves, her fingers dancing across the communications panel. "It's faint, but there's definitely a signal out there." Ross nodded. "Can you clean it up?" "Working on it, sir. It's not a standard distress call, but it has a pattern. Definitely artificial." Dr. Olivia Wright entered the bridge, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. As the ship's xenobiologist, any sign of alien life immediately fell under her area of expertise. "What do we have?" she asked, leaning over Reeves's shoulder to study the data. "Unknown signal." "And there's something else," Reeves replied, adjusting her instruments. "I'm detecting a large object about 500,000 kilometers ahead. It's not moving like a natural body." Ross straightened. "Lieutenant Murphy, yellow alert." "Dr. Wright, I want your assessment if this is first contact." Jack Murphy, the security officer, nodded and pressed a button. A soft yellow glow filled the bridge as the ship went to alert status. Tall and muscular, with a shaved head, Murphy had served in the Earth Defense Force before joining the exploration fleet. His hand rested near his sidearm out of habit. "On screen," Ross ordered. The view screen shifted to show a distant object. As the computer enhanced the image, they could see it was clearly a vessel, one unlike any human design. Its form resembled an elongated teardrop with irregular protrusions along its hull. Parts of it appeared damaged. "It's not moving under power," Reeves reported. "Just drifting." "Life signs?" Ross asked. Dr. Wright checked her scanner. "Yes, multiple readings, but they're strange, not human patterns at all." Ross made his decision quickly. "Bring us alongside. Maintain safe distance. Murphy, prepare a boarding team. Dr. Wright, you're with them." 90 minutes later, Dr. Wright floated through the alien vessel's main airlock in her spacesuit, followed closely by Murphy and 4 security officers. The gravity was off and the emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the corridor. "The atmosphere is breathable," Wright said, checking her instruments. "Slightly higher oxygen content than Earth normal, but within safe parameters. Keep helmets on until I say otherwise," Murphy ordered his team. "We don't know what might be in the air besides oxygen." They pushed deeper into the ship, passing strange chambers with curved walls covered in symbols that looked like scratches. The design was unlike human architecture. No right angles, everything flowing in organic curves. "I'm getting stronger life sign readings ahead," Wright whispered, though there was no need to be quiet in their sealed suits. They entered a large chamber that appeared to be a command center. Floating in the zero gravity were 5 creatures, unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Each was roughly the size of a human, but with an exoskeleton resembling a mantis. They had 4 arms ending in delicate manipulators, and their bodies were covered in plates of a greenish-brown material. Their heads featured compound eyes and mandibles that clicked nervously as they observed the humans. "Nobody move suddenly," Wright cautioned. "They appear to be predatory species." One of the creatures pushed forward using some kind of propulsion. Pack. It studied the humans carefully, then made a series of clicks and whistles. "I'm recording everything," Wright said. "The translation program will need time to work." The creature extended one of its arms, pointing at Wright's scanner. It repeated the gesture several times. "I think it wants to see the device," Wright said. "Be careful," Murphy warned, his hand on his weapon. Wright slowly offered her scanner. The creature took it gently, examined it with its compound eyes, then returned it with a gesture that seemed almost respectful. "Commander Ross," Wright spoke into her comm. "We have definite first contact with an intelligent species. Requesting permission to attempt communication protocols." "Granted," Ross's voice came through. "Proceed with caution." For the next hour, Wright worked to establish basic communication. The creatures, which they began calling the Khazari based on a repeated sound they made, seemed equally eager to communicate. Using pictures and simple diagrams displayed on tablets, they established that the Khazari ship had been damaged in an attack by another species. When they returned to the Artemis, they brought 2 of the Khazari as diplomatic guests. In the ship's conference room, with gravity restored, the aliens moved with a predatory grace that was both beautiful and unnerving. Their physiology suggests an evolved predator species, Wright explained to Ross after the initial meeting. Their ancestors would have been ambush hunters, similar to our Earth mantids but on a much larger scale. Are they dangerous? Ross asked directly. Any sentient species is dangerous, Commander, Wright replied. But they seem disciplined. Their society appears to be built around structured predation and hunting rituals. They kill to eat, to survive, not for sport or pleasure. As the translation program improved, the Khazari leader, who called itself Vretak, began asking questions about human history. When shown videos of Earth's past, it clicked its mandibles in what the crew began to recognize as distress. Why kill for invisible things? Vretak asked through the translator, after viewing footage of historical battles. Territory for hunting, we understand. Food, we understand. But ideas? Gods? Papers with symbols? Makes no sense. Wright tried to explain human warfare but found herself struggling to justify it to a species that killed only when necessary for survival. We're showing them too much too quickly, she told Ross privately. They're having trouble processing the concept that humans kill for reasons beyond survival. How do they view us? Ross asked. With fascination and horror, Wright admitted. They keep using a term that roughly translates as shadow predators, creatures that kill for reasons that cast shadows, reasons that can't be seen or eaten. That night, as the human crew worked to repair the Khazari vessel, one of the younger aliens became agitated when a technician accidentally damaged a sacred hunting artifact. In a flash of instinctive aggression, it slashed at the crewman with its forelimb, causing a deep wound. The incident created immediate tension. Murphy's security team responded by confining all Khazari to their quarters, while Dr. Wright tried to explain that the attack was a cultural misunderstanding, not an act of war. As Ross considered his next move, Amy Reeves made another discovery. Commander, she reported urgently, I've finished analyzing the damage patterns on the Khazari ship. It wasn't a random attack. They were specifically targeted by a third species, one that seems to be tracking them. And based on the residual energy signatures, this third species may be following them straight to us. Ross looked up at the view screen where the damaged Khazari vessel floated alongside the Artemis. Humanity's first alien contact had just become considerably more complicated. The tension aboard the Artemis remained high in the days following the incident. The wounded technician, Joe Foster, was recovering in the medical bay, while the Khazari remained confined to their guest quarters. Commander Ross knew he needed to resolve this situation quickly, especially with the threat of a third species potentially tracking them. We need to talk to them, Dr. Wright insisted as she paced in Ross's office. What happened was a cultural misunderstanding, not an act of aggression. Ross rubbed his temples. A man was injured, Olivia. Yes, and in Khazari culture, damaging a hunting artifact is a serious offense. They see those artifacts as extensions of their identity as predators. Ross sighed and nodded. Set up a meeting, let's see if we can move past this. 2 hours later, Vretak and 2 other Khazari sat across from Ross, Wright, and Murphy in the ship's conference room. The translator had been improved, allowing for better communication. Our young one acted wrongly, Vretak began, mandibles clicking softly. Among our people, one does not strike without ritual challenge. This was dishonor. We understand it was not intentional, Ross replied carefully, but we need assurances it won't happen again. Vretak made a gesture with its upper limbs that they had come to recognize as agreement. Young one will face judgment from our hunting council when we return. Now we must speak of greater dangers. The ones who hunt us will find us soon. Doctor, Wright leaned forward. Can you tell us more about them? Who are they? They call themselves nothing we can translate. We name them Void Eaters. They hunt not for food, not for territory. They hunt to remove, to erase. The description sent a chill through the room. Murphy shifted uncomfortably in his seat. They're machines, Vraytok continued. Not alive as you or we are alive. They take organic matter and convert it to more of themselves. Sounds like self-replicating AI. Wright muttered. How do we defend against them? Ross asked directly. Difficult. They adapt quickly. Our people have fought them for 2 cycles of our sun. We came to this sector to find new hunting grounds away from them. They followed. Before Ross could respond, Amy Reeves's voice came over the intercom. Commander, we're detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. Pattern matches the residual signatures on the Khazari ship. Ross stood immediately. Red alert. Battle stations. The Khazari moved with surprising speed, Vraytok stepping forward. We will fight alongside you. This is now shared hunting ground. Ross hesitated only briefly. Lieutenant Murphy, escort our guests to observation. Let them advise but keep security protocols in place. On the bridge, the crew watched as 3 sleek, angular vessels emerged from what appeared to be a fold in space. Unlike the organic curves of the Khazari ship, these craft were all sharp edges and metallic surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They're scanning us, Reeves reported. Our shields are holding, but they're probing for weaknesses. Open a channel, Ross ordered. Let's try talking first. Reeves tried several frequencies but shook her head. No response, sir. They do not speak as we speak, Vraytok said from the observation position. They communicate in data bursts, concepts, not words. As if to emphasize the point, one of the vessels fired a beam of pulsing energy that struck the Artemis, causing the ship to shudder. Shields down to 82%, reported the tactical officer Paul Garcia. That was just a probe shot, sir. Return fire, Ross ordered. Target their weapon systems if you can identify them. The Artemis fired its phase cannons, striking the lead vessel. The energy seemed to be absorbed with minimal effect. Their hulls adapt to energy weapons, Vraytok warned. Each strike teaches them. The enemy vessels split formation, moving to surround the Artemis and the damaged Khazari ship. They're using standard encirclement tactics, Murphy observed. Just like human hunters would. But we are not standard prey, Vraytok clicked. His 2 companions made sounds that the humans interpreted as agreement. To everyone's surprise, the 3 Khazari moved to the weapons console. Vraytok placed a data crystal on the panel. Hunting knowledge, he explained. Frequencies that disrupt their coordination. We have learned through many battles. Garcia looked to Ross, who nodded. The tactical officer uploaded the crystal's data and recalibrated the weapons. Fire when ready, Ross ordered. The modified weapons struck the enemy vessels with noticeably more effect this time. One of the ships visibly shuddered its movements, becoming less coordinated. It's working, Garcia said with relief in his voice. The battle continued for 20 tense minutes. The Artemis took damage, but the combined human technology and Khazari hunting knowledge kept them in the fight. Finally, the enemy vessels broke off their attack and retreated, folding back into whatever subspace dimension they had emerged from. They will return with adaptations, Vraytok warned as damage control teams worked throughout both ships. They always return. 2 days later, as repairs continued, a transmission arrived from Earth. Director Frank Collins of the Earth government appeared on the main view screen, his expression grave. Commander Ross, your first contact report has been received with great interest. The Security Council has voted unanimously. You are to bring these Khazari representatives to the neutral station at Europa for formal diplomatic talks. Sir, there's more to the situation, Ross began explaining about the Void Eaters. Collins's expression hardened. All the more reason to formalize an alliance quickly. We're detecting similar energy signatures in 3 other sectors. Whatever these machine entities are, they're expanding their territory rapidly. After the transmission ended, Ross met privately with Dr. Wright and Vraytok. Your people wish alliance, Vraytok observed. This is wise. Separate hunters fall to pack hunters. I'm concerned about cultural misunderstandings, Wright said. Your people kill for sustenance and survival. Humans. Our history with killing is more complex. Vritak's compound eyes seemed to study Wright carefully. We have viewed your history. Records. Your people kill for territory, for resources, for beliefs, for pleasure. This is disturbing to us. Does that mean you won't ally with us? Ross asked directly. No, Vritak replied. It means we do not fully understand you. You are dangerous in ways we cannot predict. This makes you valuable hunters against the Void Eaters. He paused, mandibles clicking softly. We kill because we must. You kill because you can. This difference terrifies us, but perhaps it will save us all. As the Artemis changed course for Europa, Dr. Wright found herself troubled by Vritak's assessment. Humans had always considered themselves morally superior to pure predator species. Now she wondered if, from another perspective, they were something far more disturbing, predators who had evolved beyond the limitations of necessity into something unpredictable even to themselves. The Europa station hung like a gleaming jewel against the backdrop of Jupiter's icy moon. The Artemis docked alongside 5 other Earth vessels and 3 Khazari ships that had arrived in response to Vritak's communications. The station buzzed, with activity as humans and aliens worked to establish formal diplomatic relations while preparing for the threat of the Void Eaters. Dr. Olivia Wright stood in the observation lounge, watching a young Khazari named Krivak study a display of Earth's history. Unlike the older Khazari, Krivak had quickly picked up human language patterns and could now communicate without the translator. Your World War II fascinates me, Krivak said, compound eyes reflecting the images of tanks and planes. 60 million dead for ideas. Territorial control, resources, power, Wright corrected gently, and to stop terrible atrocities. But started for ideas, Krivak insisted. Concepts with no physical form. We struggle to understand. Before Wright could respond, Dr. Samuel Green entered the lounge. The military scientist had been assigned to study Khazari biology, ostensibly to improve medical care, but Wright suspected other motives. Dr. Wright, you're needed in Lab 4, Green said with a thin smile. We've made some interesting discoveries about our new friends. In the lab, Green displayed a series of genetic samples on the main screen. Look at this, he said, pointing to specific sequences. Khazari DNA has similarities to Earth life that can't be coincidental. Wright studied the display with growing surprise. This suggests a common ancestry or deliberate engineering, but that's impossible. Unless both our species were created or modified by something else, Green suggested. Or unless humans and Khazari share an origin we've forgotten. The implications were staggering, but before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout. The station. Captain Laura Bennett's voice came over the intercom. All personnel to emergency stations. Void Eater vessels detected approaching Jupiter space. This is not a drill. The observation deck of Europa Station became an impromptu war room. Holographic displays showed 12 Void Eater vessels approaching in formation. Captain Bennett, a veteran of 3 space conflicts, stood at the center giving orders while Vritak and 3 other Khazari hunting masters offered tactical advice. Their pattern has changed, Vritak observed, mandibles clicking rapidly. They learn quickly, Bennett nodded grimly. So do we. She turned to her tactical officer. Deploy the new weapons based on the Khazari specifications. Wright stood at the back of the room with Krivak, watching the humans prepare for battle with a cold efficiency that seemed to fascinate the young Khazari. Your people enjoy this, Krivak said quietly. The preparation for killing. We don't enjoy it, Wright protested. We're protecting ourselves. No, look at their eyes, the focus, the excitement. My people feel this only during ritual hunt for food. Your people feel it for war, Wright finished for him. It's not enjoyment, Krivak. It's just adrenaline. The first shots were fired as the Void Eater vessels came within range. Earth ships deployed advanced energy weapons adapted from Khazari technology. The aliens' vessels used hunting tactics, circling, feinting, striking with precision. For a time, the defense seemed to be working. 3 Void Eater vessels were disabled, their strange technology disrupted by the combined human-Khazari efforts. But then something unexpected happened. They're changing their configuration, reported a sensor officer, reading massive energy buildup. The remaining Void Eater vessels merged into a single, larger entity. This new combined ship fired a wave of energy that disabled 2 human vessels instantly. They've adapted faster than we predicted, Bennett said, her voice tight with tension. Wright watched as the captain made a decision that would change everything. Deploy the Nova warheads, Bennett ordered. A hush fell over the war room. Even the humans seemed shocked. Freetalk turned his compound eyes toward Bennett. What are these weapons? He asked. Something we developed after studying your ship's wound. Patterns, Dr. Green explained, stepping forward. They target the specific molecular structure of the Void Eaters and cause a chain reaction. The Khazari hunting masters conferred briefly, their mandibles clicking in what Wright now recognized as alarm. You created specific kill weapon? Freetalk asked. Not for defense only? For total destruction? We did what was necessary, Bennett replied firmly. The Nova warheads were launched. When they detonated near the combined Void Eater vessel, the effect was immediate and devastating. The enemy ship didn't just take damage. It disintegrated at a molecular level, breaking apart in a cascade of light that spread to engulf the disabled vessels as well. Complete silence fell in the war room. The Khazari stood motionless, their alien faces unreadable to human eyes. Finally, Freetalk spoke. You have killed them all. Not disabled, not driven away, erased. They were trying to erase us, Bennett countered. We did what was necessary. Later, in a quiet corner of the station's garden module, Wright found Krivak staring at a simulation of Earth's oceans. Your people frighten mine now, the young Khazari said without preamble. The hunting masters debate breaking alliance. Wright felt a chill. That would be dangerous for both our species. Yes, but they say, predator who kills beyond need cannot be trusted. Krivak turned his alien gaze to her. I have studied your wars, your weapons. You make tools specifically to kill other humans, not for food, not for survival only. It's complicated, Wright began, but Krivak continued. I have theory. Humans kill for abstract reasons because you can imagine abstract futures. You kill not just what threatens now, but what might threaten later. You kill not just enemy, but enemies. Possibility. Wright was silent, struck by the insight. This makes you dangerous, Krivak added, but also makes you strong. We Khazari would never think to create weapon that kills at molecular level. We hunt what we can see, what we can touch. Their conversation was interrupted when Dr. Green rushed in, his face pale. Dr. Wright, you need to see this, he said, holding up a datapad. We've decoded more of the Void Eater signals. They're not just random machine entities, they were created. Created by whom? Wright asked. By a species that shares 92% genetic similarity with humans, Green replied. Some kind of ancient human-like civilization that destroyed itself. And here's the strangest part. The Void Eaters aren't trying to erase all organic life. They're specifically targeting humans and any species that aids them. Wright looked from Green to Krivak, a cold realization forming. They recognize us, she whispered. They recognize what we are, what we could become. Krivak's mandibles clicked softly. Yes. Now my theory makes sense. Void Eaters were created to prevent humans from ever existing again. Because humans kill for reasons beyond survival. Reasons that threaten everything. As if confirming their darkest fears, alarms rang out again across the station. But this time, the sensor readings were like nothing they had ever seen before. Something massive was emerging from Jupiter's orbit, something that made the previous Void Eater vessels look like tiny scouts. The real war was just beginning. The massive Void Eater vessel emerging from Jupiter's orbit was unlike anything they had seen before. Nearly the size of a small moon, it pulsed with dark energy that sensors could barely analyze. Europa Station immediately went into full emergency. mode as smaller Earth and Khazari ships scrambled to defensive positions. On the command deck, Captain Bennett stared at the tactical display with narrowed eyes. "We need every Nova warhead we have," she said grimly. Beside her, Vritak made a sharp clicking sound. "Your weapons will not be enough. This is their nest ship, the primary colony." General William Harris, who had arrived from Earth just days earlier, stepped forward. Tall and imposing with cold blue eyes, he had a reputation for ruthlessness that made even hardened soldiers uncomfortable. "Captain Bennett is right about the warheads, but wrong about how to use them," Harris said. "We don't fire them at the ship, we fire them at Jupiter." A shocked silence fell over the command deck. Dr. Wright, who had been quietly observing with Krivak, spoke up. "General, that would cause a chain reaction in Jupiter's atmosphere. The radiation alone would create a shockwave that would destroy everything in this part of the system," Harris finished for her, "including the Void Eater mothership and this station. We've already evacuated the essential personnel and data to Earth." Bennett turned to face the general. "This station has over 3,000 people, and Earth has 9 billion, Harris replied coldly. "The math is simple." Vritak and the other Khazari hunting masters stepped back, mandibles clicking rapidly. In their version of urgent conversation, Wright could see the alarm in their alien postures. "You would kill your own people?" Vritak asked, his translator struggling to convey his tone. "Not for food, not for survival, but for strategy?" "For victory," Harris corrected. "The Void Eaters will reach Earth within days if we don't stop them here. This is our best chance." Commander Ross, who had been coordinating evacuations, stepped onto the command deck. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his voice remained firm. "General, I cannot allow this. The station can still be evacuated. We need time." "Time is the one thing we don't have," Harris snapped, then turned to his aide. "Lieutenant, the authorization codes." Before the aide could respond, Ross nodded slightly to Murphy. The security officer stepped forward and placed himself between the general and the weapons control station. "With respect, sir, this is still my jurisdiction," Ross said quietly. "And I won't sacrifice these people without exploring every option." For a tense moment, it seemed Harris might order his men to remove Murphy by force. Instead, he smiled thinly. "You have 6 hours, Commander. Then I implement my orders with or without your cooperation." As Harris left the command deck, Dr. Nicole Turner, the psychologist who had been documenting the human-Khazari interactions, approached Wright and Krivak. "Did you see that?" she asked quietly. "The Khazari's reaction to Harris's plan?" Wright nodded. "They were horrified." "Not just horrified," Turner corrected. "They were afraid. Not of the Void Eaters, but of us." On the observation deck, Ross gathered a small team including Wright, Murphy, Vritak, and Krivak. A holographic display showed the massive Void Eater vessel, now surrounded by hundreds of smaller ships. "We need an alternative to Harris's plan," Ross said. "Something that doesn't involve sacrificing everyone on this station." "I might have something," Wright said hesitantly. "Dr. Green's research shows that the Void Eaters were created specifically to target humans or human-like species. They recognize us at a genetic level." "How does this help?" Murphy asked. "Because they're programmed to prioritize human targets," Wright explained. "What if we send a small team with modified genetic signatures that would register as superhuman to their sensors? Something that would draw their attention away from the station?" Vritak's compound eyes studied Wright intently. "A decoy hunt, drawing the predator away from the main prey." "Exactly," Wright said. "We could use one of our smaller ships, modified with the strongest engine we have. Lead them away long enough for the station to evacuate. It would be a one-way mission," Ross said quietly. "Whoever goes wouldn't be coming back." Silence fell over the group as they considered this. Then, surprisingly, Krivak stepped forward. "I will go," the young Khazari said, "with human volunteers. My genetic structure combined with human material would create strong lure." "No," Vritak immediately objected. "You are young hunter, future of our clan." "That is why it must be me," Krivak replied. "To understand humans, I must think like humans. They sacrifice for abstract future, for possibilities. While the Khazari debated among themselves, Dr. Green arrived with an elderly Khazari that Wright hadn't seen before. This Khazari moved slowly, its exoskeleton showing signs of age and battle damage. "This is Jarek," Green introduced. "He's their equivalent of a historian or prophet. He has something to share." The elderly Khazari's translator voice crackled as he spoke. "Ancient records speak of shadow predators who hunt beyond need. Our oldest stories tell of those who kill for what might be, not just what is." Jarek moved to the display, pointing at the Void Eater ships with a trembling limb. "These machines were created by the shadow predators who came before, created to prevent the shadow predators from rising again. And they see that potential in humans," Wright realized. "Yes," Jarek confirmed. "But ancient stories also say shadow predators had great power. Power to create, not just destroy. Power that comes from killing for reason, not just need." Ross looked between Jarek and the display of the approaching enemy. "What exactly are you suggesting?" In another part of the station, General Harris met with a small group of loyal officers. On a secure display, he showed plans for a new type of weapon developed by studying both the Void Eaters and the Khazari. "Once we've eliminated the immediate threat, we'll need to address the Khazari issue," he said coldly. "They've seen too much of our capabilities, and their horror at our methods makes them unpredictable allies." "Sir," one officer objected, "the Khazari have fought alongside us. They've shared their technology. And they've seen our willingness to do whatever it takes to win," Harris replied. "How long before they decide we're more dangerous than the machines?" Back on the command deck, Ross made his decision. A small ship would be prepared carrying a mixed crew of human and Khazari volunteers. They would attempt to draw away the Void Eater forces while the station evacuated. As preparations were made, Dr. Turner found Wright in the science lab. "You're going with them, aren't you?" she asked, watching Wright prepare genetic samples. Wright nodded without looking up. "Someone needs to make sure the lure works correctly, and I need to understand why they fear us so much." "I think I already know," Turner said quietly. "The Khazari kill because they must. The Void Eaters kill because they're programmed to. But humans," she paused, "humans kill for possibilities, for futures that exist only in our minds. That makes us the most frightening predators of all." The small craft, hastily named Hope by its crew, detached from Europa Station and accelerated toward the massive Void Eater mothership. Inside, Dr. Wright monitored the genetic lure they had created, a combination of human and Khazari DNA enhanced, to appear as an irresistible target to the Void Eater's sensors. The mixed crew consisted of Wright, Lieutenant Murphy, Krivak, and 2 human engineers. Commander Ross had remained behind to oversee the station evacuation and deal with General Harris. "Lure is active," Wright announced, watching her instruments. "We're broadcasting at maximum power." Murphy piloted the ship with steady hands. "How long before they notice us?" His question was answered almost immediately as dozens of smaller Void Eater vessels broke away from the mothership and turned in their direction. "It's working," Wright whispered. Krivak moved to stand beside her, compound eyes reflecting the sensor displays. "The hunt has turned. We are now the prey that leads the hunter away from the true target." Back on Europa Station, the evacuation proceeded with controlled urgency. Ross supervised from the command deck, watching as transport ships departed in careful sequence. 42% of personnel evacuated, reported a young officer. Estimated time to completion, 2 hours. "The Hope has drawn away nearly a third of the enemy fleet," another officer added. "But the mothership hasn't changed position." Ross nodded grimly. "Keep monitoring, we need every minute they can give us." On the engineering deck, General Harris and a team of specialists worked on something entirely different. They had commandeered the main lab and sealed it off from the rest of the station. "The modified Nova warheads are ready," reported Dr. Green, who had reluctantly joined Harris's team under orders. "But sir, this goes beyond our original design parameters. The genetic targeting system was never meant to distinguish between Void Eaters and Khazari," Harris finished coldly. "That's precisely why we modified it. 2 birds, 1 stone. Green looked troubled. Sir, the Khazari are our allies. They're apex predators who are horrified by our methods, Harris replied. How long before they decide? We're the greater threat? This is preventive action. Aboard the Hope, Wright noticed something strange in her readings. The Void Eater vessels following them were not attacking, merely pursuing at a constant distance. They're hurting us, Murphy realized, driving us somewhere specific. Krivak's mandibles clicked rapidly. Toward the mothership. They want us, alive. Wright adjusted her instruments, focusing sensors on the mothership they were being driven toward. I'm detecting something unusual at the center of that structure. Energy patterns that don't match the rest of the ship. On a secure channel, they received a transmission from Jarek, the elderly Khazari still aboard Europa Station. The ancient texts speak of a core, the old Khazari said, his translator voice crackling. A central mind that guides the shadow. Hunters. If you reach it, you might communicate. Communicate with machines programmed to destroy us? Murphy asked skeptically. Not just machines, Wright said slowly, studying the new data. There's something organic at the center, something alive. As the Hope was drawn inexorably toward the mothership, Europa Station continued its evacuation. Ross was contacted by Dr. Turner from the security center. Commander, you need to see this, she said urgently. I've accessed General Harris's secure files. The modified warheads he's building aren't just for the Void Eaters. They're designed to target Khazari biology as well. Ross's expression hardened. Where is he now? Engineering Lab 7. But Commander, there's something else. Something in the oldest data we recovered from the Khazari ship. They're legends about shadow predators. They're not just stories. They're warnings. Before Ross could respond, the station shook as the first direct attack from the Void Eater mothership struck. Despite the decoy mission, the massive vessel had begun firing on Europa. On the Hope, Wright and her team felt a strange pulling sensation as their ship was drawn into a massive opening in the mothership's structure. Emergency systems flared, warnings as external controls were overridden. We're being docked, Murphy reported, fighting with unresponsive controls. The small craft settled into a vast chamber lined with technology that seemed to be a hybrid of mechanical and organic components. As the external hatches sealed, Wright made a decision. We came to communicate, she said. So let's communicate. Against Murphy's objections, Wright opened their airlock. Instead of rushing into attack, a strange mist entered the ship, coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. You carry the pattern, a voice echoed, seemingly coming from everywhere at once. The forbidden pattern. Wright stepped forward. We want to understand why you're attacking us. The mist shifted, forming a more distinct shape now, like a human but with proportions slightly wrong, as if constructed from imperfect memory. I am the architect, the entity said, created to prevent the rise of the destroyers. You carry their pattern, their potential. You must not be allowed to spread. Krivak moved to stand beside Wright. Who were these destroyers? The shadow predators of our legends? The architect's form rippled. They were like you, it directed at Wright. They killed beyond need, for ideas, for possibilities, for power. They created us to serve, then feared us and tried to destroy us. In the end, they destroyed themselves, but not before commanding us to prevent their kind from rising again. At Europa Station, Ross confronted Harris in the lab. Security teams had surrounded the area, but Harris's loyalists were prepared for conflict. Stand down, General, Ross ordered. I know what you're planning, Harris smiled coldly. I'm ensuring humanity's survival, Commander. First against the machines, then against our allies who will eventually turn on us. The Khazari have fought. Beside us died beside us, Ross argued. They're apex predators, Harris replied. And we're something they don't understand. Predators who kill for reasons beyond survival. They fear us because they should. Inside the Void Eater mothership, Wright had a sudden realization. She turned to Krivak. The genetic samples we used for the lure, they were combined, yes? Human and Khazari? The young alien confirmed with a gesture. Wright turned back to the architect. You were programmed to prevent the destroyers from returning. But look at us. Human and Khazari working together. This combination doesn't match your template for the destroyers, does it? The mist figure seemed to hesitate, its form becoming less stable. The Khazari kill only for survival, Wright continued. They balance the human tendency to kill for abstract reasons. Together we become something new, something your creators never anticipated. As Wright spoke, Europa Station transmitted the final evacuation signal. All non-essential personnel had escaped. All except General Harris and his team, still determined to launch their modified weapons. The architect studied Wright and Krivak for what seemed like an eternity. Then it spoke again. A new pattern emerges, insufficient data to determine threat level. We don't need to be enemies, Wright urged. Your purpose was to prevent destruction. Help us learn from your creator's mistakes. The mist figure dissipated suddenly, leaving them alone in their ship. Moments later, the mothership's systems began powering down. What's happening? Murphy asked, checking his instruments. On their communication system, Ross's voice came through. The Void Eater ships are withdrawing. All of them. What did you do? As the Hope was released from the mothership, Wright watched through the viewport as the massive vessel began to move away from Jupiter. We showed it a possibility its programming hadn't considered, she said quietly, that humans don't have to become what it feared. In the aftermath, as peace negotiations began between Earth, the Khazari, and the newly communicative architect, Elder Vatrok of the Khazari summed up what they had learned. The same darkness that makes humans kill for nothing is what allows them to die for everything. This is their paradox, their weakness, and their strength. We kill to survive. Humans kill for disturbing reasons, yes, but they also refuse to kill for equally profound ones. As Wright listened to the Elder's words, she understood at last. Humans were predators, yes, but predators with the capacity to choose a different path. And in that choice lay their greatest hope.